Get ready to embark on an economic journey as we unveil the heartbeats of the Rwandan business landscape. This is the Business Age, your front row seat to the economic renaissance of the land of 1,000 hills. Join us as we traverse the bustling markets of Kigali, delve into the success stories of Rwandan entrepreneurs, and explore the dynamic forces shaping the nation's economy. From the boardrooms to the street vendors, we'll bring you the voices of the visionaries and the minds behind Rwanda's economic evolution. Discover the fusion of tradition and technology, witness the agricultural innovations transforming rural communities, and explore the cutting-edge innovations propelling Rwanda into a new era of economic prosperity. From the city lights to the rural landscapes, every business is a story waiting to be told. Hello there. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of The Business Age. On today's edition, we zoom in into the publishing industry. How best can we equip our young people to better tell our story while also shaping the African narrative? We'll get to hear more. We get to speak to an entrepreneur who has managed to be in the business for 10 years. They will share their journey with us. You'll be with me, Naringwa Fiona Mothoni. Dominic, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. What was the whole vision behind you creating a publishing house?
10 years ago I started Imagine We 10 years ago, and the idea was I wanted for children to see themselves in books that were representative of who they were, right? So when I was personally growing up in the generations before, the books that were coming out for children were mostly by the West. So children looked not like us, right? And we started realizing that that plays a huge role in the self-esteem of African and Black children, because if they're not seeing themselves in spaces that are inspiring, that are elevated, they will not believe that they can attain those spaces. Originally, I just had a community library, and we received all these books again from the West. And when we would interview the children, because we would read to them and ask them what they learned, they would say, white people can do this. You know, they would say, oh, they can do this. It's not for us. And we had all these books, and we had about 80 children every day. And we realized maybe we're doing something wrong in wanting to do something right. We're reading to them all these Cinderellas, all Spider-Man, all these people who don't look like them. We're just reinforcing. And we had an idea. We said, why don't we release one single book? Originally, it was one book. It was never a crazy story. And we said, why don't we release one book? And from there, we can teach these kids that it can be bigger things that, than they dream of. And from there, the book came out. We partnered with Peace. She was Miss Rwanda at the time. That was the first book we ever released. At the launch, another person was like, can we also work with you? At their launch, and then that's how I had to quit my job, because I had a job, because it was growing. But originally it was just from a space of, can we give children books that inspire them to be bigger and better in Rwanda?
So what I'm hearing, when you started, you wanted to instill confidence through education tools, as well as within the African narrative. 10 years later, how would you assess the work that you've done? How do you feel about it, and how have you attained what you intended to?
10 years later, I think we're just scratching the surface. We're just starting. I think we're now more confident ourselves in building this business and making sure that now it impacts the creative industry in the country and hopefully in the continent. We have almost, I would say, we took these 10 years to test the market. We are very proud to know that all of the customers that we have are Rwandans, Africans, and then immigrants after, coming from the West or other places. So I would say we are now testing real bigger partnerships. We're reaching more schools. Last year we did a project where we reached all districts of Rwanda, which was the first time. So it's very exciting to know that we are growing a lot faster because of the knowledge. I was 22 years old. I made a lot of mistakes, but now I think as a real adult, as we might say, I feel the business side of it is now making sense. I had to learn business on my own. I had to learn all these things that, when you start a business as a young person, you don't know yet. So now that we have all the tools, the team, I feel more confident, but I also know that we really have reached a lot of children. The children that we started with, I had the privilege to visit some of them through another event. It was called the Women in Leadership Summit. The children who were 6 years old, 7 years old, they're now grown. We had a 22-year-old that I met in the conference. She remembered the books, and I was like, oh, well, we're actually doing something. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, now still looking at the impacts, I want to look at it from a numbers perspective. Mm-hmm. When you say last year you were able to go to different districts here in Rwanda, so the last 10 years, what have you achieved in numbers?
In numbers we've reached about 37,000 children in form of customers and beneficiaries, because there are some times where we have corporates subsidize for the books that we sell. We have sold over 60,000 copies of books, and we're still producing. We're now producing we started by producing 500 books per year, and now we're producing, I would say, this year alone we would have produced maybe 34,000. So we're really growing in that area. In terms of beneficiaries, last year we did 2,700, 2,300 children. We did about 20 schools. So that was, if you do the math, that's about 100 children per school. What else did we do? We released a free digital public library for children. It's online with 200 books, 246 books actually, that are free of charge. They can log into our website. They have a library, they create an account, and they are free to read books by children for children. And then outside of that, this year we will release 22 new authors. We will release memoirs. It's very exciting what we're doing this year. Everyone is on average 500 to 1,000 copies that we distribute all over the country. We have a partner in Kenya who covers Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. We work with diaspora in the US, Canada, and then diaspora in Europe.
Wow, okay, that's very impressive numbers. How is the demand? Does the work that you're doing, moving even from 500 to producing over about 34,000 in itself, does that reflect the demand that it's also increasing? Or yes. How would you assess how the market has grown over the years?
Personally, I feel, and my colleagues will speak on this, I feel like there was a huge shift in our favor during COVID. I think we might be the only company at least entrepreneur, small company that would say that COVID benefited them. I think at the time, maybe parents were like, we don't want our kids in front of television all the time. We don't want children on screens scrolling. And that's where we saw a boom. Personally, I feel like that's when the company really started. We were dancing with ideas from 2015 to 2020. 2020 is when, our prices made sense. We did the right thing. And the other thing as well is that in 2020, our customers shifted from just being tourists to now being real, local parents who are just changing the lives of their children. And once they read the first book, the children start being our own ambassadors. They want the next one, they want the next one. So everything shifted for us during COVID. Yeah.
Okay, and what are some of the challenges? You've said the first 10 years have been more of you learning how to manage a business. But when you're looking at the sector in general, what would you say are some of the pressing challenges that are still maybe holding back, if we can put it in that way?
I'd say the market is quite small in Rwanda, right? A lot of smart people start their business with the aim to export. And exporting of books is still a little bit hard. It's hard to get the information that we need at hand. There's different shipping companies I won't name, but the price of shipping is still quite high. So if someone buys a book, we ship per kilo. Someone buys a book that's, you know, about 500 grams. They buy it at maybe 15,000, maximum 20,000. To ship that same book to them in the US or wherever, that's going to cost them another 30,000. Why would you want to buy a small novel for 50,000, right? So then we have those small challenges of access to the wider market. I think the market in Rwanda, we are controlling a bit more because of the advent of social media. There's a lot of support that is free that can actually give you opportunities of visibility. When we started 10 years ago, if you did not have a billboard somewhere, nobody was going to know you, right? So having things like Twitter, like Instagram, and WhatsApp Business, MTN, you know, with bulk messaging, all these things have been relieving some of the challenges. But of course, the biggest challenge is going to be capital. You know, we have a lot of stories that we reject annually. We reject over 100 stories. You know, some years up to 500 stories. Not because they don't have substance and they're not good, but because we cannot produce more than, we went from producing 2-3 books per year to this year we're producing 22. So we wish we could do 1,000, right? The big publishers in the US, Penguin produces about, I would say, 1,000 books a day, right? We are so far from what the market potentially could have. The publishing industry globally is $140 billion, and we are very far from that. So there is a challenge of understanding. The community is still an oral culture. It's very hard to say, why do I need my child to read? So beyond selling them books, we're doing a lot of education and creating our own customer. We are creating our own demand. And sometimes it can be exhausting, sometimes it can be exciting, but it's this, you know, kind of mechanical pushing and pulling that's not very fun always. Another thing I would say is also team. I would say we are a very new market in Rwanda, right? In the US, you have schools that train this whole market. You know, if you you go to school to be a publisher or to be a publicist or to be a writer, right? So from here, when we build the team, we really build from scratch, which is really exciting, but there's also gaps because we're learning as we're doing. I'm also learning as I'm doing because I was not formally trained in this, and those I'm bringing with me are not formally trained. So it's an opportunity for the country to also look at it as a serious market, the creative industry as a whole, so we can have a TVET or a university, something that really focuses on this. But so far, we are really, really scrambling from scratch, going to YouTube University, as most people. ChatGPT has been really helpful in gathering the data around the world. So there is learning, but the challenges are still really, really there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the creative industry at large, you've touched on it briefly, but I really want to understand, when you're looking at other markets, art is already an export product, you know, but now when you're looking at Africa, we're still like, there are specific markets that are already doing it, you know, they're already putting in the investments needed to grow the creative industry. But how would you assess the creative industry in itself being a huge contributor to the GDP, and how best can we unlock what we're missing out on?
I think we definitely need for our supporters, be it the government, be it larger bodies, the CSO, you know, civil society, to look at it as a contributor to the GDP. For example, I know that Netflix Africa is scanning through. They're looking for stories. Where are the stories from Rwanda being represented? How do we have that backup? Sometimes, some communities, I love using Nigeria as a tool or as a learning, as a mentor, as a model, because it's the people that push the institution for it. So if you look at, say, Burna Boy, it's not the government that pushed him forward, it's the people, the fans, right? So there is also, I feel we want to stop waiting for the government, and we want to actually teach the mass to support, so we have more leverage. But it's true that the government could also support and look at it. I would say also it's our responsibility to show the potential by, formalizing ourselves, remembering to pay taxes, because those are the numbers that they look at. If they see, the taxes from this industry is coming up, they will wake up, right? So we don't just want to wait for handouts and say, oh, government, help us, give us grants. We also want to be contributors to say, look at our, tax bracket, look at what we're bringing in and see, right? So we want to be active contributors, not just passive that require support. But where can we also meet in the middle, right? What can happen? What conversations should be had? I would say there's a lot of potential, but we still need a lot of support. But I believe in terms of formalization, we're moving a few creatives from gig economy to permanent jobs. So that will reflect eventually making sure that they're certified, making sure that they're interested in learning what they're doing. So that, the more we formalize them and professionalize them, it's very hopeful that the government and the country at large will take it seriously. Parents were something that we really started from. 10 years ago, those who joined the creative industry were assumed to have failed. Because you're a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, everything else is a failure. But now they're like, oh, okay, we see it. We see Dolph doing these massive events. He's paving the way. He's paved the way for so many of us. We see Sonia Mugabo. We see a lot of people in the creative industry paving the way. So the more parents in the community see it with dignity, it already removes a lot of taboo and shame that makes it valuable in itself. So they come to work, you feel like, they're dignified. We see that shift. We see when parents come to our launch event to support the illustrators that illustrated it. There's a shift, and that shift is already a beginning because if our staff can be stable in what they're doing and not seeking other jobs and me getting ready to find new people every once in a while and train them from scratch, if that's not happening already, that stability is a good foundation. And I think we're starting.
We get to speak with one of the illustrators at Imaginary, and he shares with us his journey.
I don't remember exactly the numbers that I have worked on, but I many books. I studied art at School of Art in Nyundo, École d'Art de Nyundo. I graduated in 2021 as a graphic designer and illustrator in graphic art. And since then, that's where I started doing art as a career, if I can say. Yeah. It's been 6 years. Since 2020, even though I was in the school. Actually, how I can say my journey, I can call it a growth. Or I see myself I see myself in the first year of doing what I'm doing today. It's totally different compared to what I'm doing today, because my way of living is learning. So I think it's a growth from the drawing on papers, and the next is to see my drawing on print like this, and to see my artworks on TVs, where it's animation, where it's something for branding. I started on papers. Pencil and paper and pen. So, but when I was doing that, I try to maximize my capacity of doing that. So there's one guy who saw my artworks on paper, and then that's where he said, if you can do this on paper, I'm confident that you can do this as well on iPad. So he just helped me to access the iPad and digital way of doing that.
Book by book, skill by skill, Rwanda is not just publishing stories, it is building futures. We speak to the operations manager to understand how Imagine We is equipping and training ambitious young Rwandans.
Our trainings are in two different categories. First of all, we'll talk about one of them, which was a program, which was more than a training, was a program. We worked with the MasterCard Foundation, where we trained more than 2,000 students across the country. So in this kind of training, we were aiming to train students about creative writing. These students who have passion, who just write in their notebooks or in their write poems, just for like maybe for therapy, maybe it's their coping mechanism, just as a hobby, to show them how they can make it a little bit professional, not as like final professional authors, but making it to life and making sure it can be publicly. So that kind of training was in line of our vision, promoting reading and writing culture. So to ensure that young people, especially children in high school and either O-level or advanced level, they are part of the journey. Not just reading, not just telling them to read, but being the part of the journey of writing the stories that others can read as well. So that's the first kind of the training which we're doing to make sure that we are providing also the authority to the young people to write, and then also to inspire others to write and read as well, because they can see their fellows are writing as well. Then coming to other trainings we do private, like I could call it them private training for people who just want to write, especially adults or professionals in different careers who want to write memoirs, who want to start writing as a career. So we provide specific trainings, especially about storytelling and creative writing and publishing in general, which includes publishing with the publishing company and self-publishing, where we help people to know what they think, the projects they've been having for long, how they can bring it to life. We give the guidance, the consultancy, the technical skills, and everything they need, and the tools. We share the tools that they can use. If they want to work with us or any publishing house, they can do that. Or if they want to do the self-publishing, also how they can do that, the cost it may cover, and all of that. And the other trainings we do is more into capacity building, now working with people who are now coming to be professionals. And like one of the projects we're working on is called Rwandan Imagination, in partnership with the Institut Français, Création Africa, and the French Embassy, where we work with alumni from École d'Art de Nyundo, who are artists, training them to become graphic artists. So this is a way of taking people who have already basic skills, investing in skills development, and then later training them how to move from the passion, the skills, now monetizing them. That's the first one. And then there is another one now with women, which is called Women Leading Digital Narratives, in partnership with GIZ, where we're training women in the creative industry now in different sectors: content creators, bloggers, writers, public speakers, actors, videographers, now to train, because one of the gap, as the CEO mentioned earlier, one of the gap in this industry, the low participation of women. And also those who participate, the income, there is a huge gap, the income that men gain and the women are gaining. So this was a project mainly for women, so that we can also see how we can support women in the creative industry in general, to see how the skills development, the mentorship, and also monetizing their skills as well. So how I can say, in general, all the reason or the importance of all these trainings, first of all, is to promote the reading and writing culture when we are training young children, like the one we did in high school. And then for adults, it's the skills development, to ensure that people who also have skills, they have skills which are updated, which are relevant to the market, but also now creating more careers in the industry, to ensure that we have more entrepreneurs, if we have more employees who can really work on the professional level, who can compete on international level. Also to make sure that this industry and the culture is growing and the narrative is changing either in Rwanda, in the region, and Africa as well.
Now, when I look at the challenges or even the gaps that you've mentioned, then my question is, do we have the capacity as Rwanda, as Africa, to tell and sell our own stories, even just looking at what needs to do to strengthen the entire just ecosystem, from looking at the literacy, the reading in itself, literacy levels here in Rwanda, to equipping them to be able to be creative in the way they're telling these stories, how to use the different tools. So how best can we bridge the gaps within the entire ecosystem?
These are hard questions, yeah? How do we bridge the gap within the entire ecosystem? I'd say number one, formalization. I will repeat that, the stability of, I have this career and I'm choosing this career allows you to increase the quality of what you're releasing. I think we are still known for low quality, right? A tourist comes and grabs whatever they can grab because they have no other choice. But if it was a birthday gift, would we compete well? So quality should be competing internationally, and I think a lot of us are doing that now. Across the creative industry, being fashion, being publishing, we're doing that. There's a lot of training that needs to happen. So for us at Imagine we have a MOU with Nyundo, École d'Art, where we get cohorts coming here. We train them, we provide them with iPads because sometimes they only know how to draw on paper. We train them. How do you draw on paper? So we're not just providing illustrators for ourselves, we're also releasing them into other different industries. They know how to use modern tools. They're faster because 10 years ago, we would draw on paper, scan the paper, put it on a computer, use Photoshop. Now, if you're doing it all on an iPad with pens that have come, it's very easy, it's faster. So we're churning books out. The first year, we released one book in the whole year. The second year, we released another book in the whole year. Now we're, so I would say the more training that we're providing, same with authors. Fortunately and unfortunately, I think a lot of the manuscripts that were coming to us, still are coming to us, have always been around the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And just the survival story. I hid here, I did this, I hid here, right? We are training people to say, okay, what else can you write about? Maybe you're now a mom and you are a survivor. How are you parenting as a survivor? Rather than just, because for the longest time, that's what was selling, and we kind of trained authors to just write about that. So we're, training is very important to diversify the content we see, and to also kind of sell Rwanda to the world through books, through this creative industry that we're having. Yeah.
And now for the profitability of it, how profitable would you say? What's the business sense behind like a publishing house?
This is where I am at risk of inviting the whole world into this industry. We are in our own space that we recently purchased. And that should be proof to any publisher or anybody who's willing to enter this industry to know that this is very lucrative, very lucrative. For us, our profit margin is between 60 to 70%. So you can imagine if we're releasing a book and it's on the market for 15,000 Rwandan francs, we typically release between 1,000 to 2,000 per book. With that profit margin, what are we looking at, right? For me, I would say this is one industry that the book will live. I always think about like the restaurant industry, which if you didn't feed your people that day, tomorrow the food is dead. For us, we're very lucky that that's not the shelf life that we have. We have one of the largest shelf life. Unless the building caught on fire, 5 years from now, you can still buy our books. So it's very safe. It's just how creative are you and how are you attending to a market. So typically, if we are releasing about 20,000 to 50,000 copies a year, right, we're looking at maybe around 300,000 to 500,000 USD. We do want to grow, we do want to be better and bigger than that, but it's very hopeful to have a high profit margin, and then to also be able to invest in our own space. We created our own training space, we have our own tools, so it's a very low capital. You invest very little to start and you have a big profit margin, so it removes a lot of risks. The book don't rot, the book don't die. It's amazing.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yes.
On having your own space. And what's your vision for the next future of African storytellers? What would you tell them?
Right now, I think we should look at digital. I have avoided digital for the longest. I have been a book nerd. You know, you want to read and smell the books. Typically, people who love books will say that, but going digital is the future. We can't avoid it. How do we catch up? So for us at Imagine we just launched our own selling platform, Amazon of sorts, where we are allowing Africans to write their ebooks and sell them freely all over the world. People are receiving their books. So going digital is really the future. And I would say also, how do we use AI to aid us in customer retention, customer relationship management? Those are tools that AI have been really, really helpful for at least Imagine We. The more partnership we retain, the more money, the more longevity, I would say.
That's all we had for today's edition of The Business Age. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are with me, Naringwa Fiana Mothoni.